wanted to ask you about special teams. You guys have had success all 3 weeks with either the return game, the block punt. Can you talk about the effectiveness of your special teams unit? And then also, as a coach, when you're preparing for opponents, how much do you dedicate to special teams? And you wonder how much opponents have to prepare extra for you with the success that you've had?
Well, I think our coaching staff does a really nice job. Jay Nunez and the rest of the coaches meet every day on special teams, and I think we have great drills that are very applicable for the guys. We've got great buy-in from our players, and there's a lot of time from them on the field that's put into that part of the game. So field position was an issue for us a year ago, and your offense is part of that, your defense is part of that, your special teams is part of that. So we've worked really hard at it. And again, our players at the end of the day, they're the ones that are out there playing and straining and blocking and being detailed and precise. So I think it's a combination of all those things, but the players buying into it as much as anything.
When you say competitive depth, does it not just relate to offense and defense? You look at guys battling for positions on those 11 on special teams.
Yeah, no doubt. 70, is all you're allowed to travel. So, creating value for yourself as a player, even if you're not a starter, is important so that you can, again, separate and get on the bus. It's a big deal, R.J. Spears had 19 special teams plays last week. He's our special teams player of the week. And I think he had roughly 28 defensive snaps. So, you're just south of 50 snaps, by creating, a lot of value, being on three units and developing confidence and accountability and all those things that'll help transition too, when you do get in as a player. Helps your confidence in everything that you're doing. Yep.
We'll go down the line, Ryan.
Yeah, Brent, I want to ask you about Dylan and the difference that you've seen in him from the mental side of things, so the non-physical stuff, with the way that he's controlled the game, the decision-making, things like that. What stood out to you so far about what he's been able to do in that regard?
He's probably I don't know if he's taking pressure off himself or not, but he looks like he's having a lot more fun. And that was prior, to the start of the season. I think the group of guys around him, both players and coaches, everybody's more comfortable just being in the system for another year. And then some of the newcomers have really adjusted quickly. But, I think it's just, again, he's a guy that's played a lot of football. His best football is at the end of his collegiate career, because the game slows down for you. What you see from defenses and anticipating, what you're doing on offense, where the breaks are, things like that. But I think it's a combination of that experience and then the guys around him being a little more confident and sure of, what they're doing, in year two. And then again, having a season where maybe, you play off of your strengths and then, hey, really focus and spend time on areas that I need to get better at, whether it's decision-making or situational football.
Talk about him having a little bit more fun. Can that sometimes come before the success? I don't know.
You hope it does. I mean, again, if you don't love what you're doing, it's going to be hard to be great at it. So, being confident and sure of who you are is part of that, and certainly he's never lacked confidence, but knowing that this is his last college year, it probably plays a part into that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brent, we've talked a lot about the new parity in college football. TCU, Cincinnati's make the playoff, different changes at the top. What's causing that, and is that good for the Sooners, or is that another challenge for the Sooners?
I don't know if it's a challenge for us or not. For us, just want to focus inside out. But I do think there seems to be more parity, and I think it's a great thing for college football. And I don't make the rules, and they don't really ask us a whole lot about, what our thoughts are on some of those rules. So we try to take advantage of, the landscape that we're in, and at the end of the day, to have something that's sustainable and has longevity, I do believe that continuity is an important piece of what you're doing. So we don't want to be short-sighted and lose our sight of what what it takes to have something that has sustainability. And so we don't want a roster that's disrupted a whole lot. So we want to work hard at finding the right guys that know that their opportunity may not happen day one, but they can still be a great teammate and develop and be ready for their opportunity when it comes, and that value the things that that we value. But the parity's there, it appears, and makes there's some excitement that's taking place these first 3 weeks for sure.
Yeah, Brent, wanted to ask you about some injuries, either guys that didn't play on Saturday or maybe got banged up. Savion Byrd, Josiah Wagner, R. Mason Thomas, Justin Harrington, and Reggie Pearson.
Yep. So hopeful for all those guys. We're still evaluating Harrington in particular, about what his options might be.
And then secondly, I know over all off season you talked about yards per carry in rush defense, wanting to cut that number in half. I believe you guys have so far, I think 2.29 is what you guys are in run defense right now per carry. How do you feel like your run defense has maybe improved?
It's good. We're getting more physical, and we got more guys that can play in that front seven. I think that, our secondary support is a little better, but all of it still has a lot of work. Just more confidence, better fundamentals at times, and a little more physicality, just a little more assuredness in the things that we're doing.
What kind of growth have you seen from Marcus Stripling from this time last year to now, and then your defensive end room as a whole? It seems like you're getting great contributions from all parts of that room early on.
Yeah, Coach Chavis done a nice job developing that group and getting opportunity for all those guys, showing they can play quality football. He's really done a good job of not having a selfishness in the room, which is not an easy thing to manage. But Marcus' maturity, he's a hard-playing dude. He's got a better football IQ now than where he was a year ago, just his knowledge base and fundamentals that go along with that. So he's improved in all of those areas and created, again, opportunity for himself through. He's a hard-working teammate. He comes to work every day at practice, and being, again, in your last year, that can't be an easy thing, to when you want even more opportunity. And but so I got a lot of appreciation for Marcus just because of his workmanlike attitude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of dovetailing on defensive line talk, Cincinnati has said that they like their skill position guys. Do you feel like you may have an advantage in the trenches with your guys in this matchup on Saturday?
I don't look at it as an advantage, so to speak. I know that their front is really, really good, and they're experienced, they're battle tested, and they've played at a really high level for quite some time. So they've been a very consistent group of guys. So that's going to be a great challenge. And again, I said this at my radio show, and I told this to the team. This is going to be a line of scrimmage football game, both sides of the ball. They're physical, they're relentless, aggressive, confident, all those things. So it's going to be exciting, challenge. They're a top 10 team rushing the football as well. The quarterback is the second leading rusher on their team. He's a 6-year player, very experienced, and very explosive at receiver with Xavier Henderson. Fantastic player, tied for the Big 12 lead in receptions, and so they've got a three-headed monster on offense, and a defense that that has had a high standard of success, over the last several years. So it'll be a very confident group, that we line up against in Cincinnati.
Left side, James.
Brent, in your offensive line, you've played a few guys. What do you think about that unit at this point? And Peyton Bowen has played a lot for you. And I know you've played freshmen before in your career and young players, but talk about how difficult that is for a freshman to come in and do that.
Yeah, no, the offensive line has done a good job. We've one of the best in college football, keeping a quarterback clean, and have done a good job efficiently at rushing the football, and helping in sometimes you got lots of runs called, but you got the RPO world, so you pull it out of the belly and you throw it down the field. So so you don't know whether or not they were any good or not, and so they've done a nice job. Again, we lost 5 guys a year ago, and 3 starters, and so I think those guys have done a really nice job, and there's still room to continue to improve at every position on our football team. They're not excluded in that, but I like where we're at right now up front. Peyton, it's not easy. There's nothing easy about it, but he was here at mid-year. A really smart guy. Football comes easy for him. He's highly skilled, very instinctual, confident, but eager to learn and work. So he's, again, created opportunity for himself, and he'll just continue to get better the more he plays.
Brent, I'll talk about what's different this year. Is obviously first and foremost focused on football, but when you talk to your players, they talk about a different feel, different closeness just within the program. Just foundationally, how significant is that, important is that, and a season and 3 weeks in, where are you right now in building what you want to build in the long term?
Yeah, I mean, I think that process never stops. You're always building, you're always nurturing, you're always protecting, you're always, rehearsing, your values, beliefs, developing and nurturing, culture. Again, we've got 97 players that are either in their first or their second year on our roster. So we've worked hard at trying to create an environment where we recruit guys and get our guys to buy into, relationships and knowing each other, and spending lots of time doing that. And then they've, spent a lot of time on their own, as well. I think that's part of it. That's not to be, undervalued. It's, I think it's teams that are close, teams that know each other, teams that trust each other through all of it. We have great respect for one another. We tell each other the truth and all those things. I think that's important, for us anyway, as we build our program. And so you want guys that's important to them as well. But, so for all the returning players, they're just another, year into the relationship. So, that certainly hasn't hurt. So maybe that's some of the things that, they're talking about.
Yeah, Brent, sort of going back to freshmen, Caden Green, Peyton Bowen, they're both playing multiple positions. How tough is it to recognize which true freshman can handle something like that? And is that something you can see in recruiting, or you have to wait till they get on campus?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. You have your instincts in the recruiting process on what that'll look like, and then once you have them, you quickly find out, how they learn, how they respond, how they compete, how they play, all those things. And so I think it's a combination of both of those things, and both of them have. It's not a surprise to us that they have the capability of doing multiple things, at such an early age. But in a perfect world, you zero them in on a position and let them, go get it. Sometimes you can afford that, sometimes you can't.
Jesse.
Hey, Brent. Wanted to ask you about Nick Anderson, obviously the big game on Saturday, but just what do you remember about your early interactions and impressions of him, and how neat has it maybe been to see him, get back on the field and have some success?
Yeah, confidence, humility. It's a very competitive family. He's a football junkie, just a great teammate, And, last year was very frustrating for him. Really hard-working guy that was, again, a year ago was just snake bit. So just couldn't get over that injury hump. And but he hung in there and kept working, through it all. And so it's great to see him have some success, after everything he's been through. And he's got a great future. He's big, he's long, he's fast, he's tough, he's smart. He's a good leader. So a really good young freshman.
Second row on the right, Mason.
Brent, heard you mention the word accountability earlier, and it was something you talked about a lot going into your first spring ball back here. How far has this team come in terms of accountability to this point, and how important is maintaining that going into this last run through the Big 12?
Yeah, I'm really proud of our guys. Y'all don't get to see all the work and the investment that goes on behind the scenes relentlessly. And this is a group of guys that want to be pushed and challenged and held accountable. So I think it's critical foundationally, in your success. And when we've fallen short, our guys have, again, they've handled it the right way. And so got a great appreciation, respect, admiration, all of those things for what our guys have been about. And they want and welcome the strain of what, the sport brings to you. And so that's gives you belief at, as a coach and as a leader, it gives you a lot of belief in, what our guys are doing and, the direction that we're going.
Justin?
Hey, Brent. Andrelson has really hit the ground running for you guys. Obviously didn't have the biggest role in Michigan, but when you're going back in that recruiting process, looking at his film, even a small sample size, just what made you feel like he could really translate to that big role?
He had a pretty good role. They just didn't throw him the ball. And really smart, again, humble. Reasons for leaving were, there was no red flags. They wanted to keep him. So that was important, for us as we're trying to find, 1, 2 guys, that they're going to fit into the locker room, well and be great, unselfish teammates. But, and then of course he's very explosive, and we had a, background in knowing who he was coming out of high school. So we had a comfort level to know what we felt like we might be getting from an athletic standpoint. And then again, but since he's been here, he's just put his head down and he's worked and started at the back of the line. And, as of right now, he's, at the front of the line. So he's earned everything he's gotten, and teammates really, appreciate his work ethic and his humility. Mm-hmm.
Okay, back right, Cliff.
Yeah, Coach, you hear all the time young quarterbacks who are talented, how beneficial it is for them to have veterans around them. Mm-hmm. But I wonder, with a guy like Dillon Gabriel, and you look at how he's playing, how beneficial it's been for him to have a young guy who's really, really talented that everybody's talking about behind him. Has that pushed him in any way?
I would expect so. Again, I've said this before, competition will bring out the best, should bring out the best in everyone if you're made of the right stuff. And, I don't think Dillon's ever felt, quote unquote, threatened, but certainly knows that the young guys watching him every day and is incredibly talented in his own right. So who doesn't want to show off their stuff, So I'm sure it's helped. And again, but at the same time, Dillon's, since I've known him, has not been a guy that's looking over his shoulder either. He's confident in his own skin and the process and what he needs to do to play at a high level. And I think that's helped him, as opposed to paralyze him. And there's some guys that, you got a handful of guys that they're worried about the external factors or things that they can't control. And it does stunt their growth, in my opinion. Keeps them from really realizing their potential.
Back, left side, John.
Brent, for the offense, one of the big goals was to improve on third down. And when you look 3 games into the season, you see tangible evidence that it's happened, right? So what I'm wondering is, from a coaching perspective, from a teaching perspective, how gratifying is that to set those goals and tell the guys exactly what you got to do. This is what we got to work on, and then they get through that. And I know, again, 3 games into the season, you can't beat your chest, but
Yeah, I don't know, gratifying as a coach as much as you're looking for affirmation for your players. You know, young people want to be affirmed, and they're willing to do what you ask them to do as long as, you know, they know you see them, and then they, you know, it's like, I think human nature is to be even more bought in when you do have, you know, the results that you desire. And I think everybody, you know, as a football program and organization, realize these are the areas that we've fallen short. We're going to spend a lot of time in improving in all the things that entails, and so I'm hopeful that it's, you know, gratifying for the players. For the coaches, we know that you're always a week away from humility, and you know, and just keep your head down and just continue to do the things that you've been doing to make the improvement. And but to me, it comes down to practice field, the film room, the strain, the competition, the failure, and we've really helped get each other better in a lot of those areas that we're talking about.
Second row, James.
And Coach, when you're evaluating Emory Jones and the skill set that he brings, what is it that you're telling your defense to kind of prepare for what he's going to bring on the field when you all get out there?
Well, again, he's an older guy that's played a lot of football, so he's seen a lot. And I think, you know, whether it's how you're rushing a passer or how you're playing the mesh game, I think it's important that you better be fundamentally sound in everything that you're doing, because this is a guy that can beat you, you know, both with his feet, you know, and his arm. So he's got really good weapons to surround him, to help him be a good player. Like all good offenses and good players, you're usually a benefactor of having other good players around you. And so very dynamic, you know, he can throw the ball a country mile, and he can pull it down and, you know, take it the distance at any time. So a really dangerous player, and but at the same time, you got to stay, you know, within your scheme and your philosophy. And but we got a great challenge. There's no doubt about it. You know, the things that he can do and headaches that he can cause, his ability to improvise is a tough thing to simulate.
In the way back, Chris.
Yeah, Coach, how much at this point in the year do you just take what the defense has given you, and how much is their focus of, okay, no, we want to make sure we can establish the run this week?
I think a good team, you know, has the ability to do that, you know, establish what you want to establish. Again, some teams are going to, you know, load the box and dare you to throw, and so your results you want them to align with that, and then sometimes they're pretty balanced in what they're doing, and you've got to be able to execute. I've said this all along. You want to be able to, when it's time that everybody in the stadium knows you got to run it, the opponents know you got to run it, or throw it, that you have the ability to execute, you know, in those situations. That's what a championship team can do. Even when you know it, you know, you're still able to, whether that's physicality, it's precision, it's play design, whatever that is, that, you know, that is imposing your will, if you will. And that's, to me, that's what it takes to, be a team that's playing in, middle of January. And so you can't go broke taking a profit. And so you want to teach and have our players understand what patience looks like as well. I think that's important, that you're not forcing, bad throws, or, if you're reading somebody in the run game, that you're, again, still stay disciplined to, what those reads tell you to do. I think that's important too.
Do you feel like you're there where
No, we're not there.
Back left, Tim.
Coach, how do you prepare your players for this test that's coming up? It's a true road game against an opponent that's talented, and they're going to be fired up. It's their first game in the new conference.
Yeah, well, again, they've lost 2 times in 5 years. One of the 2 times was last week. So that's a team that's used to winning. Again, they have high standards, when they play at home or they play on the road. But it's going to be, a great atmosphere. They got a strong culture, great belief system. Those players, expect success. And again, they had a tough loss in overtime. They're play, away from winning the game. So I'm sure they've got great perspective. They haven't lost their mind through a little adversity. And, they'll be ready to compete. And so we got to focus on us having a great week of practice. That's how we'll gain confidence, getting on the airplane, going to their place. But make no mistake, it's going to be a really strong challenge. Again, they've had plenty of really good teams come to their place the last 5 years and not have success. So we got to find a way to have the kind of success we need in order to give ourselves a chance to be successful.
Coach, you said this will be line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They have 10 sacks through their first 3 games, so what challenge does that defensive line give to your offensive line, who's only given up 1 sack?
Yeah, again, they got really good players. They're big, they're strong, they're physical, and again, they're relentless. Love the way they play. Just as a admirer of good football, those guys get it done. And so, again, it's going to be a challenge mentally, physically, 4 hours of challenge. And they've had great success at putting pressure on a quarterback. Some of it relates to the sacks, and some of it's just pressure, and disruption in the run game. And so, they're going to make some of their plays. That's just part of the game. You're not going to keep them from, making some plays, and you just got to keep them at a minimum. And this is a game of matchups, and this is not a game of potential, and this is not a game of talking. We're going to have to be doing it. And great opportunity for our guys. One that I know they're going to look forward to.
Time for 2 more if there are any. Go Mason and then James.
Brent, following up on my previous question, you talked about wanting to see that culture of accountability translate to a culture of execution. Are you seeing that so far?
It's been better. Yeah, it's been it's been better. Mm-hmm.
James.
Brent, you mentioned yesterday on your show that you're going to get Deshaun back. What's that going to do to your cheetah position? He's such a dynamic-looking athlete.
Yeah, again, Deshaun's he's a really good player, and he's put in a lot of hard work, and so he's a major contributor on special teams as well. And so we got a couple of other guys that had to have season-ending surgery, and so you're thankful that he's wasn't one of those kind of guys. But Phil Picciotti, Jaden Rowe, both of them are having to have season-ending surgery. Unfortunately, hate that, but the good thing for those guys, they've got their whole career still sitting in front of them, and they're going to be great players. To get, again, Deshaun back at a position where we had some guys get banged up, that's, it's a good thing. But he's long, he's super athletic and smart. He's very competitive, anxious to get back out on the field. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Coach.
All right. Y'all have a good one.